Buenas noches. Good evening.
Buenas
Buenas noches,
noches.
everyone. It's wonderful to see you all here. Good evening. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
All right.
I see,
Excelente.
Gloria, this is like I Spy.
I was going to say old faces and new
faces.
faces, and I
Yeah.
thought, wait, they're not going to like the old faces thing.
No, like movies play their kids. I Spy with my little eye. Gloria.
Yeah, Gloria. See, all right.
Deborah,
very good.
excelente.
Max, fantastico.
Brenda.
Aspen, Brenda, Shirley.
Arju.
Excelente, excelente.
Excellent.
All right, people
Ruth.
are getting logged in. People are getting logged in, and while everybody's getting logged in, shoot us a quick introduction, name, and what program you're traveling on, maybe where you're logging in from. Find the chat area and just shoot in a quick introduction.
Let's do one question at a time, Ray.
Oh yeah.
Just where are you logging in from?
Okay,
So go
all
ahead
right.
and tell us where you're logging in from. Chris from Minnesota. Let's see what states we have represented. Gloria from Nashville. Excellent. Mary from Portland.
All right, California. Oh man.
Colorado.
Washington, New Jersey. We're coast to coast tonight.
We are.
Coast to coast, and we're somewhere in the middle.
Aspen from Aspen, Colorado.
She is from Colorado, I
I know,
think.
she
Yeah,
just
yeah,
said.
yeah. Okay, all right.
Not from Aspen, sadly, but from Colorado.
There we go. Max from Colorado. Fantastic. Brenda from New York City, Queens, Victoria, Denver. Excellent. Great. So we have lots
Awesome.
of states represented, but the most important thing is you are all going to Costa Rica with us. Okay.
Woo, excelente.
In January, February, which is going to be fantastic. Carolyn from Denver.
All right, next question. What program are you on? The general program, the medical program? Drop that in the chat.
Yeah, tell us what program you are participating. Medical.
Lots of medical. We're heavy medical, I think, this winter.
Fantastic. If you are a medical student, let us know also. Those medical students.
Oh yeah, fourth year rotation. What a great rotation, right?
Fantastic.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. All right.
Let's get started with some introductions. So who
Yeah.
are you?
Hola, me llamo Rory. I'm Rory. I'll be with y'all during the program. The first 3 weeks ish is where I'm scheduled to travel this winter, and so I'll be working with each of you, every one of you. I'll be working on our volunteer projects in the mornings, our weekend trips and excursions and things like that, other fun things, helping you, supporting you with all things immersion throughout your time there.
Awesome. And I am Leslie Foster.
Yep.
And we do go together and work together, have a family together. We have 3 kids. I will be with you guys for the first 10 to 14 days, not quite sure, depending on kid commitment stuff.
Yep.
But super excited to meet you all. Some of you I know. So to see you in person in Costa Rica is going to be fantastic. And to meet the new to our community as well.
Absolutely.
And I want, if Dr. Lowenstein is available. There we go. Okay.
There we go. Esteban.
Esteban, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Steve Lowenstein, faculty at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. So Colorado, all those other things that everybody's put in the chat. I'll be there basically weeks 2 and 3.
Awesome.
And what else?
What else for me?
Yeah.
I know you don't really want me to take over this meeting because Leslie
Steve
and Laura-
teaches the dance classes. He forgot to mention he teaches the dance classes, and those are very engaging. Okay. All right. Gracias, Esteban.
Perfect. Glad to help.
And then we have Vanessa with us tonight. Vanessa, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Hola, I'm Vanessa. I'm from Mexico, and I work with Rory and Leslie. I help them with social media, and also I've been to Costa Rica in immersion with them twice, and I'll be there weeks 4 and 5. So for all of you who are staying till week 4 and 5, I'll see you there, and I'll be there to help you with anything you need, not the dance classes, but with Spanish I can help mainly.
Gracias, Vanessa.
Fantastic. So that is your leadership immersion team for our winter programs. Esteban, Rory, Vanessa, and myself.
Yep. Muy bien. Excelente. In a minute, you're going to have a chance to introduce yourselves to each other. But before we get to that, let's talk through some beginning basics, sort of get our agenda
Yeah,
going. What do you
want to
think?
share your
Yeah,
screen?
I'm going to share my screen.
So Rory's sharing his screen. While he's getting that set up, go ahead. We're going to go over some questions tonight. We're going to have some time at the end of the meeting to go over your questions, answer your questions. So, but we want to know, and Vanessa, if you can record, what are the top of mind questions that you have tonight? Let us know.
Drop them in the chat.
Drop them in the chat box so we can see those. That would be fantastic. We'll make sure that we answer. And this is the first meeting of 3. Okay, the next couple meetings that happen in January is where we'll be focusing more on explaining the volunteer projects and host families and things like that.
Yep.
So this is a general introduction meeting. We're going to pop up the agenda tonight so you can see what we're doing. But throughout the meeting, go ahead and use that chat box to drop your questions. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session.
Awesome. Muy bien. Okay. So shall we talk nuestras reglas, our rules of engagement, basic, just online meeting stuff. Speak Spanish, English, Spanglish, doesn't matter. Just participate. You will use your earbuds to cut out background noise. When you're not speaking, mute yourself. This is all like everybody knows all this stuff now. When you do speak, let us know who you are so we know who's talking. And then be sure to chat it up in the chat box, please. All right, awesome. Our Temario, what are we talking about tonight, huh?
Okay, so introductions, you guys are gonna to save time, instead of all 31 of you introducing yourself individually, we're gonna split you up into breakout rooms here soon, and you're gonna meet a handful of fellow travelers and introduce yourself. It can be in Spanglish, English, Spanish, or a mixture. Okay, so go ahead and do that. We're gonna talk still COVID requirements. We still need to talk about, so we're gonna just run by those real quick. Your fellow travelers. We're going to talk about how engagement during the program with your fellow travelers.
And who's traveling when and what weeks.
How we define immersion, and just to warm up the idea of this deep immersion experience for you. Obstacles and our group commitment. This is really important. We're going to explain our group commitment tonight, and this is going to positively impact your language learning on trip. Our general schedule. We're going to share some optional excursions with you that if you want to participate, we need you to register by December 30th so we can reserve those spaces. And Rory, famous.
The shameful lista de delincuentes. It's just so shameful. But no one's on the list yet, but we're going to let you know what the lista de delincuentes is and why you don't want to be on it by our next meeting. Okay. So
we're going to leave you with some action steps to take after tonight that we need in order to get your host family set up for you and all arrangements made. So we're going to talk about that at the end.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. We're going to break you up into little groups, and here's what you're going to be conversing about with each other. First of all, just preséntense, introduce yourself, your nombre y estado, where you're from, la profesión, your fruta favorita, and then what is your most urgent question. And so take a minute to get to know each other. We'll have 4 or 5 people in each room, and so we'll take a few minutes. Everyone just do a quick introduction, and then we'll come back and make sure we get all of your most urgent questions recorded in the chat area. If you can answer some for each other, awesome, but make sure that you bring them back to the big group too. Okay. All right. I think we're ready. Let's send them off.
So just get to meet a new amigo.
Oh, you know what? Hold on. I'm going to drop these questions. I'm going to stop my share here real quick and drop these questions into the chat area so everyone can see them.
Okay. And I see your questions coming in if you're dropping in the chat, so we'll be sure to answer those tonight as we go through the presentation.
All right. When you head off to your breakout room, there are your topics to introduce yourselves. Okay. All right. I think we're ready, hon.
Okay.
Let's do it. Hasta pronto. Hola, amigos. Coming back. Excelente. Muy bien, muy bien. Okay. As you're coming back to the group, let's do this. what were some of the group questions that you guys were talking about the program? Please put those down in the chat area. Vanessa will log them, and we'll make sure we get them all answered toward the end of the meeting. And if we have to postpone any answers, then we'll definitely get them in the replay as we send them out. Okay, so let's get all those answers down there, or questions down there. And then if you had no questions, then maybe the most interesting fruit people had. La fruta favorita más interesante. What was la fruta favorita más interesante? Was it like banana? Not too interesting.
Granada.
Ooh, Granada. Yeah, Granada is muy interesante.
Lots
Yeah.
of interesting fruits. And in Costa Rica, you'll get a tropical fruit demonstration, get to
Oh, yeah.
try all this interesting fruits. Okay.
All right, so
Great.
drop your questions in there from the group. Make sure you get them in there. While you're doing that, we're going to pull the presentation back up and start talking COVID.
We see lots
Woohoo!
of questions about COVID, about vaccinations. So we're going to answer those through the meeting at the end tonight as well, about host families. All right, let's start off with COVID requirements. You should know that Costa Rica has dropped all their COVID requirements. There's no testing requirements anymore. They do not require vaccines to get into the country. However, Common Ground National, we do have COVID requirements, right?
We do. It's a responsible thing to do as far as going into other host families and things like that. And so we still have, we still want you to make sure that you are, wait, this isn't going, there we go. You're vaccinated, at least the initial 2. Many of you are probably boosted multiple times. Wonderful. But as kind of a baseline, we want you to at least have the 2 vaccines on board. And then before you do travel, this is also pretty important. We're going to ask you for proof of a negative test within 3 days of your travel. So that could be any kind of test. If it's a home test, not a clinic thing, then just have someone sign off on it. They witnessed it, send us the image of your negative test, that kind of thing. So that's the extent of our COVID requirements. You may be wondering what our sort of just day-to-day COVID protocol stuff might be. There isn't currently, as of today, any indoor masking mandates or anything like that. It's probably a good idea if we end up on a crowded bus, like standing room only type bus, to have your mask on. I may wear one in that kind of situation. And additionally, if as far as testing stuff goes on the ground during program, we are following just a symptoms-based testing protocol. So if you're feeling any symptoms that could be related to COVID, then we'll ask you to take a test just at local pharmacy. We can grab the home tests and go from there. Okay.
And I want to answer a question that came up in here. Are all host families vaccinated? Most of the host families are vaccinated, but not all host families. So if that is really important to you, you need to put that on your registration form. There's a section in there that talks about host family preferences, and you can list that in there. Okay.
And if you already completed your travel registration form and you didn't put it on there, just send an email off to Samantha and say, hey, please add this to my profile for host family matches. Okay. All right.
Or send an email to Rory or myself. Whatever Common Ground email you
It'd
have.
be better to send it just to me.
We'll put that in the chat. Shirley's asking about testing requirements. Those were dropped last June. The US dropped testing requirements to get back into the US. So as of today, things may change, but as of today, the US does not require a test to come back into the US.
Shirley might be asking that for the same reason that John emailed me this morning and said, hey, Rory, I think your info's out of date. There was an email that was, I missed the, I didn't remove the got a test to get back into the States thing. So there it was, I had an out of date email for some folks. You may have gotten it that said, yeah, test to get back into the States, but that has, like Leslie said, been dropped since June. So that's old news.
I actually
Thanks, John.
remember the day.
So do I.
June 12th.
It was a Sunday. I remember it was right before we were headed to, I think, Costa Rica, maybe.
And I had a program in Costa Rica, and it was 3 days before they were supposed to depart, and they were
That's
excited.
right. That's right.
About that. So, okay. Anyways, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Who will you be traveling with? We've got a big group weeks 1 and 2, and then you'll see little by little the group size kind of diminishes. And so here we have find your name. It should be in alphabetical order. If your name is not on there and it should be, or it is on there and it shouldn't be, then either way, you got to let us know. Okay, you could drop a message in the chat or just say, hey, Rory, you messed this up. So that's week 1. We've got just shy of 40 people week 1. And then week 2, we're down. You see the numbers kind of dropping off a little bit. This is who we have on in town week 2. And then week 3, we've got fewer people still. Week 4, our numbers drop off some more. Week 5, it's getting to be a pretty intimate group. And then week 6 are the few, the proud, the brave, the strong.
After 6
Yeah.
weeks,
Oh
you
my
really
gosh.
Which is just your Spanish
Through the
communication
roof.
abilities is going to be, it's amazing. You're
Through
going
the
to
roof.
see such a huge difference. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
So
hopefully you got to meet 2 or 3 people or 4 people that you'll be traveling with in Costa Rica.
yeah, awesome. So, we talk about immersion quite a bit and, but we don't assume that everyone has a complete picture of what it is. And so what truly is an immersion program? If you were on our get to know us and figure out if you want to do this program a couple of weeks ago, if you were on that meeting, you heard us talk through this a little bit. But when we say immersion, what's the first thing that pops into your head? What do you think of when you hear the word immersion? What does that conjure up? What do you see there, or what do you think of when you see the word immersion or hear the word? Okay, Gloria, speaking all Spanish all the time, all in 24/7, says Natalie. Okay, all right, we're on the right track. We're definitely on the right track. What do you think of, hon, when you hear the word immersion?
You have probably heard this if you joined our info session, but the image that I cannot get out of my head is our 3 kids jumping off a pool deck into a pool cannonball style.
Not running though, right? Walking.
Running with their kids, running off the pool deck, jumping into the pool. And when you go cannonball style, not one part of your body is dry. And that's what I think about when this immersion program, because you are with your cinco sentidos, your 5 senses, completely immersed in the sight, sound, smell, touch, everything in Spanish and culture.
Yeah.
The cultural immersion is so important because it's really hard to separate a language from the culture. There's so much richness that comes that you understand about the language once you are living and interacting in the culture as well.
Yeah. So completely surrounded by language and culture, and no one's going to sink. You're all going to swim, and you'll have plenty of support.
I Cheryl says totally wet. Brenda
Totally
says
wet.
sink or swim.
Yeah.
We are there. That's why we're
Yeah.
there. We're not sending
That's right.
you, by yourselves. We're there to help you, support you. And it is what we love to do, to support you and help you go through it.
So how do we do this with a group of English speakers? What is our protocol? How are we going to make sure it remains an immersive environment? So we do have un peligro. So there is a danger with a group like ours to sort of undermine the immersive sort of context or aspect of the program. But in order to avoid that danger and to counteract it, we need to make a group commitment together. So the danger, what is your biggest obstacle to exponential progress with your Spanish? What do you think your biggest obstacle is? It's not the person sitting next to you. It is actually you. You are your biggest obstacle to exponential language progress. And what I mean by that is, what you choose to do with your time, who you choose to hang out with and talk with, how you choose to start conversations. So how you're feeling about yourself with Spanish, if you're really hard on yourself and really perfectionistic, and some of you may be that way in other areas of life, but I would just beg you to consider dropping that while you're on immersion, because you're going to make mistakes and it's okay. And that's just a part of it. And that's, the more anxious you are about your Spanish, the slower your progress is going to be. The more Hakuna Matata, so to speak, you are, the faster it comes.
I
Yeah.
think between you and I, we're a good example. Rory's like super extrovertido, could care less about like perfectionism tendencies.
Happy to look like a fool. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And I'm a little bit more introvertida, and I'm very detail oriented, so I care about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that
yeah.
was personally a big hurdle for me, was getting over that. Like, who cares? Let's just get over that and
That's
start learning. Okay.
Okay, so you are your biggest obstacle. Your second biggest obstacle is the company you keep. All right, so you're going to notice that while we're traveling, some folks will sort of meander more onto the English side of things, and others will be more sort of disciplined about their Spanish. And so you have a choice of which way you go, and who you surround yourself by. You have a choice of choosing to do, something with people where you're probably going to be speaking some English, or spending that time with your host family, that kind of thing. Okay. So the company that you keep, if you're surrounding yourself by other Spanish speakers as much as possible while you're there, you're going to be on a really good track. So one of the ways, we can't separate ourselves from each other because we have plenty of group projects and things to do together, but the commitment that we have to make as a group, and it works, I promise you it works. The commitment that we make is that I will always at least start in Spanish. I may not be able to continue for very long, but I'm going to start in Spanish. And an amazing thing happens when we commit to that. Early on, everyone's sort of start in Spanish is a little shorter than it is week 2. And then week 3, it's longer. Week 4, it's even longer. And by the time you're done and going home, you're like, holy cow, I have really made some strides with my Spanish. And it doesn't matter what the length of your program is. If you're just there for a week, you know what? Stick to this commitment, and you are going to maximize your Spanish growth while you're there. So that's our commitment.
A funny story about that.
Okay.
Last summer, we had a participant, a teacher on the educator program, who had studied French, but never studied Spanish except through like a 6-month streak on Duolingo.
Yeah.
And so she, when we talked about this, always started in Spanish. She's like, this is not going to go well. I can only say yo puedo, yo hablo. And by the end of her 2 weeks, she was just there for 2 weeks. She could have like she could say a paragraph, or a little mini story in Spanish. And she was so impressed by she took this commitment seriously, because she started her sentences with yo. Well, that's enough to get going.
Yeah.
So even if you're feeling basic level Spanish, you can start with basic verb conjugation.
Yeah. So, everyone peters out at some point, and then you throw in some Spanglish or toss an English word in there, and then you get back to Spanish as soon as you can. It really does work if everyone sticks to this commitment. So that's what we're going to ask of you in your commitment, is to say, I will always at least start in Spanish. Okay. All right. So the general schedule, we ready?
Yep.
Okay.
General schedule is you wake up and you have breakfast with your host family. Okay. And then in the mornings is our time to either do a community service project or a little excursion or free time. So we usually have community service work or preparation 2 or 3 mornings a week. And then around noon is lunchtime. Some people prefer to go to the smoothie shop and get smoothies. Eat in a large group is always an option. Pack a lunch, go to the store, skip lunch, go to the park and walk, things like that. So you have your freedom with that. And then from 1 to 5, Spanish classes. Okay. With this is muy importante, a cafecito break in the middle of that to recaffeinate, get your brain going again. Often people say, oh no, classes in the afternoon, but that is the schedule that we're sticking to, because in the afternoons, it tends to rain a little bit, and it's best to do our volunteer work when we're out in the open air and things like that in the mornings, and then in class in the afternoon.
Yep.
Weekends and Monday mornings are free for you guys to do what you want to do, hang out with your host families, get to know them, travel by yourself, meet other people and travel, or we have some optional excursions that we'll talk about tonight that you're welcome to jump on board with Rory and I
Mhm.
and travel on the weekends too. And the optional excursions, we will talk about tonight, but the registration deadline is December 30th. We need 30 days to hold those spots and things like
Yep,
that.
yep, for hotel stuff and all
Yep.
that. Okay. All right. So what are these optional excursions? These optional excursions. So starting off early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
Okay.
for
All
it.
right.
I was waiting for you.
So Sunday, the very first Sunday, we'll go do a coffee tour after our orientation Sunday morning. And then on Wednesday of that week, we are going to run up to Volcán Poás. That would be in the morning before classes.
I just have to ask John Biederbach, did you do this excursion with us last year when it was super clear? You can unmute and tell us because he was with us last year. Or
I saw the world's largest cloud.
He was in the summer. He was in the summer. Yeah.
Okay. He did see the world's largest cloud. Okay.
You know, the coin flop. You know,
Some
around.
very, very impressive safety railings, a nice movie, a nice gift shop. I bought a pair of Zoso and brought it back. So
Okay, all right.
Okay, well, you get a second opportunity.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
winter.
And the first week, like you saw in the list of who's traveling when, is a big group. And so on the first Friday morning, we're going to split up into two different groups. We'll have the 1 weeks and some 2 weekers if you want to. You'll have the option to go to Cebu, which is this chocolate tasting experience. It's amazing. You can't miss it.
Shaking his
Yeah.
head, yeah.
Leslie will be there on that one. And then I'm going to take like whoever from the 2 week wants to go later, and then all the other folks to the Mercado Central in San Jose. So we'll load up on a public bus and go into downtown San Jose, see the central market. It's kind of a fun experience. And then, so that's that first Friday, the 4th. And then that weekend, it must be Friday the 3rd. Do I have my date wrong? I think it's Friday the 3rd.
It's Friday the 3rd.
Friday the
Saturday's
3rd,
the
yeah,
4th.
because Saturday's the 4th. So we're gonna head to La Fortuna on that Saturday, and we'll spend 3 days there. There's zip lining, hot
back up.
springs.
La
Yeah,
Fortuna is like the iconic volcano in Costa Rica that you see lots of pictures about. So we have 2 weekend excursions planned, a volcano weekend and a beach weekend.
and a beach
So
weekend. Yeah,
this is a volcano weekend. It's kind of like the adventure hub. There's great hikes and hot springs, as Roy was saying. There's some for the adventurous ones, zip line,
yeah,
canopy tour, which is fantastic.
yep. And then the following week, the following Friday, we'll do that Cebu thing again for everyone who didn't go week 1. Okay. And then our second weekend excursion would be off at the beach, Manuel Antonio, monkeys, sloths, more hiking, lots of beaches and things like that. So that's kind of the basics of what we have planned for the first couple of weeks as far as optional excursions go.
Yeah, I'm going to drop a link in the chat that is your welcome hub.
Okay.
And on this welcome hub is where you can find all the important links for your program, your registration form, your paperwork, and also the links to sign up for these
Excursions.
optional excursions.
Perfect.
So December 30th is the day that you need to be signed up for these. The Mercado Central is not in blue because you don't need to sign up for that. You just jump on a bus
Yeah.
and go with us.
Yeah, you just let me know the day or two before, and I'll have my little participation attendance list, and we'll make sure no one gets left in the park when we jump on the bus. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, muy bien. So we talked about the ever shameful, extremely embarrassing lista de delincuentes. Now, what is la lista de delincuentes? This is,
What do we say in English? It's not delinquent list. What is it in English?
I don't know. I don't think we shame people like that in English, do we?
I don't
Just in
know.
Spanish?
I don't know. But this is
This would be like the
your-
missing paperwork list.
Yeah, this is what we need from you.
Yeah.
And the first one where is going to pop up on the screen is your registration form.
Yeah.
And that is where you tell us your preferences about host families. If you have dietary restrictions, if you are allergic to pets, you don't want to be in a host family with cats and dogs and things like that. We need that right now.
Yep.
We need that like tomorrow, if possible. No.
Yeah.
By the end of the week, through the weekend, that would be fantastic. And here's why. We are already like reserving host families. We have the host families reserved. We just need to get matching people
Yeah.
with different families. And we can't do that if we don't know, if you have dietary restrictions, if you prefer a host family with kids in the house or no kids in the house, a host family that is definitely vaccinated or not. So we need that as soon as possible. The other thing is during this holiday season in Costa Rica, people basically take off for 2 or 3 weeks. So we will be able to really do a lot of work with host family matching come in a week or two. So we need this information as soon as possible.
We also need your Spanish placement test ASAP. And you've seen probably some emails and in your pre-departure course and on the Welcome Hub, there's some, what we need to do is get a sense for where you're at with your Spanish so we can begin forming our preliminary groups and making sure we've got enough teachers lined up, that sort of thing. A handful of you are requesting private instruction. Awesome. We just need your Spanish placement test so that we can make sure that we're planning the right number of teachers and don't get into any kind of bind. So let's get that done right away as well, please. Okay.
I'm putting your Welcome Hub link in the chat again, so you can open it up. And that's where you'll find links to all this information tonight, as far as the registration form, your placement exam, your pre-departure courses, which you're going to talk about.
Yep. So also on the lista de delincuentes would be all of your other paperwork, like your travel contracts, your liability things and releases and all that kind of stuff. Okay. In addition, a copy of your COVID vaccination record and a copy of your passport. Why do we need a copy of your passport? Well, you want us to have a copy of your passport when you can't find it, or it goes missing, or we're somewhere and you don't have it on you and you don't have a copy on you, but we've got it digitally so that we can refer to it. Sometimes into different national parks, you need to present it, things like that. So get us a copy of your passport, please, so that we can make sure we've got that on file should we need it at any point.
I will say that for participants that have lost their passports in Costa Rica or Ecuador, but Costa Rica for this meeting, the process to get that renewed is much quicker if we have a copy of your passport, because they can easily find the information in their system and reissue it.
Speaking of copies, quick pro tip. You'll have a couple physical copies and you'll just keep that copy in your pocket or purse or bag or backpack or whatever. You keep your real physical passport with your host family. And so you won't be carrying around your real physical passport ever, unless you have to, for some reason, go into the bank. But apart from that, you'll just keep a copy on you all the time and keep your passport safe at home. But an additional piece of paperwork is we need a copy of your flight itinerary so that we can make sure we've got everything matched up right with you getting picked up by your host family at the airport, things like that.
Yeah. So, and when you send us your flight itinerary, this is really important. If you're coming in a few days early or staying late, we need to know kind of what you can just say, I'm coming in on Thursday, but I'm planning to travel. So you'll meet your host family on Saturday.
Yeah, we need to know for host family reasons.
For host family, because they'll be meeting you somewhere, picking you up from the airport and things like that. So, please send us that information. If you're wondering, like, okay, what to do, as Roy just mentioned about passports and safety and, can you drink the water in Costa Rica? All that information is in your pre-departure course, which you have access to. You've gotten an email or two about it to start your pre-departure course, but all your questions about like host family expectations and can I drink the water, which yes you can in Costa Rica, what to do with toilet paper and volunteer. The only lesson that's not updated right now today is our volunteer work, because those plans are in work. Are the optional excursion lessons updated?
I don't know. We'll have to check.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one may not be updated yet either.
Yeah. But Brenda got it right. Brenda is in the Christmas spirit. She says it's the naughty list.
You, Brenda. Thank
you.
you.
It's the naughty list.
About that.
I wouldn't know that. I was never on the naughty list.
You'll see, you'll experience.
All right. Next steps. Okay. So next steps are complete and submit all your paperwork, passports, flights, everything by January 6th, please. Register for your optional excursions before the 30th. Work through the pre-departure course. That's a link to the general course. The link that Leslie dropped for the Welcome Hub also has the pre-departure courses in there. And then the things that we're still sort of modifying, you can't take these as permanent, fixed, static. First of all, the itinerary, we're still working on, little details within the itinerary, but that's the link there. It's mostly built out so you can see it. Our day-to-day things, our volunteer work is still under under construction. And then our próximas reuniones, our next meetings, we originally had Wednesday, the 11th scheduled for our meeting number 2, but Leslie reminded me that that's actually our youngest daughter's birthday. And so we can't do our meeting on our youngest daughter's birthday, but we're going to bump it one day to Thursday, the 12th. Hopefully you saw that email. And then our final meeting will be Wednesday, January 25th. Okay, so those are our next steps. Here's a little slide of some of those important links to have on hand. I'm going to go ahead and drop them into the chat as well. I'm going to stop sharing here so I can drop them into the chat. And then we can begin taking some questions, I think.
So if you're wondering, oh my goodness, all these links in the chat, they're all on the Welcome Hub. So if you want to copy down or take a screenshot or open up that Welcome Hub link, that's where you'll find all these links. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and our itinerary, you can check it out. It is a dynamic document, meaning that times and little details may change still. It's a Google Docs. So you can get in there and see it, but you will also see that Rory and I are going to be in there the next several weeks, changing things a little bit and confirming transportation and things like that.
So don't print it out tonight and then show up in February and say, hey,
I thought we were
because this thing's definitely going to have go through some iterations. Okay. I think we should take some of these questions that people dropped in. We are doing really good on time.
Yeah. Let's take questions.
So the first question from Elaine that I'm going back to like 7:07. So that was a while ago. I think that's our first question. Are all host families vaccinated? Leslie kind of answered that question. Most families are. There may be some that aren't. I will say it's not one of the requirements that we impose on the host families. However, most families are. If it is one of your personal requirements, like Leslie was saying, make sure that we know, okay? And we'll honor your request. Typhoid, is typhoid encouraged?
I dropped a link for the CDC recommendations, travel recommendations for Costa Rica. I'll drop it in there again, but typhoid is recommended for most travelers. So just so you know, it's a recommended thing. You'll see, the hepatitis A, B, COVID, malaria. You should know that malaria, the areas that we're going to in Costa Rica are low risk or no risk for malaria.
Yeah.
So there's different areas of the country that have higher risk. Measles, rabies. Oh, Esteban has a rabies story about Costa Rica, but you're good now. Street dogs. There's
another time.
Another time.
There is an important lesson in your pre-departure course about street dogs, and it was created based off of Esteban's experience. So be sure to watch that lesson.
Yeah. Okay. So Shirley had a question about dates of excursions. I think we answered that. And travel clinic vaccine. Okay, so we've got it from Chris. What travel clinic vaccinations? I think we answered that. Rick wanted to know more about vaccines. Okay, and Shirley had a question about the host family, but will be discussed later. So yeah.
You can expect to get your host family assignments
like 1 week.
1 week before you depart for Costa Rica, and we'll give you your first homework assignment. Actually, we'll send you your host family assignment, and we'll send you a tarea or a homework where we give you a prompt or a guide with the vocabulary so you can reach out to them on WhatsApp in Spanish using these prompts that we give you.
Yeah, and there is a lesson in your pre-departure course all about host family communication. I suggest you take a look at it, a week or two before you go, because it's really useful language stuff. The next question that I see is what is included in the basic travel insurance that's included with the program? So that's travel health insurance, and it typically works on a reimbursement level. And so if something happens and you need to see a doctor, then we will go to one of the local clinics, and you'll end up with maybe a $75 to $100 bill, which includes your visit and some medicine, and you'll be on your way, and you can then submit that to reimbursement to the travel insurance company that you have your policy through. The one that we've provided, not your home travel insurance, not your home health insurance one. If there's something more serious, you end up going to the hospital or whatever, then we will take you to one of the local private hospitals that we know will guarantee you good and fast service. And same thing, it'll be a pay out of pocket visit, and then you'll submit for reimbursement afterward. So that's how the travel health insurance works. This is not now I do think there's like lost baggage coverage and things
There's
like that.
Trip delay.
And trip
with the
delay
airlines, yeah.
for like a couple days, and a stipend for your delay if something happens with your flight. But it's not one of those, I decided I can't travel, I'm going to cancel my trip. And, it's not one of those cancel for any reason type things. You can certainly change and upgrade your travel insurance policy. And there's information within the pre-departure course about doing that also if you want more coverage. All right. Oh, cantaloupe and mango were tied for interesting fruits, I'm seeing.
Perfect. Okay. Victoria asked how many people are placed in a host family. Well, typically we just do one participant per host family. However, on your registration form, if you want to be hosted, let's say you're coming down with a friend or someone, and you want to be housed with another person, indicate that, and that's a possibility.
Yep, for sure.
So-
Speaking of host families, Patrick had a question in there about how to be sort of lowest impact, lightest footprint if their only option is to come in on the evening time. And so Patrick, it really just kind of depends on how late your evening flight is. If it's past like 9 p.m. getting to the airport, that means you're at least 45 minutes through immigration and then baggage and then customs. And so you're probably an hour and a half before you are exiting the airport, and that's getting kind of late. In that case, we may suggest that you grab a hotel at the airport that night, and then your host family can pick you up the next morning. But it really all depends on the time frame.
So the cutoff time, I would say, is 8 p.m. essentially.
Okay, yeah, we've kind of said 9 in the past, but if you're in that range, reach out to us and we'll figure it out. Some families obviously are more flexible than others, but it is kind of starting to be that sort of delicate time that we'd want to be interacting with your family about.
That's
okay?
great. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet.
Cheryl Gilbert, Cheryl is asking, is influenza common in Costa Rica in February in general?
It's dry season, summer season, so it's less common than July, August, that kind of thing.
Their cold and flu season in Costa Rica is in June and July.
July through like November, basically. Yeah.
So it's not the cold and flu season
Yep.
in Costa Rica in February.
All right. And Shirley had a question about testing back to the States. Nope, we already answered that one. And
yes, Chris, may I bring a gift from Minnesota for my host family? So that's another lesson in your pre-departure course, is suggestions about gifts. We do recommend a little gift as a sign of your thankfulness for them hosting you and opening their doors to you. And there's some good suggestions in that pre-departure course, but some things from your local state that are unique are always a good gift as well.
Shirley Wolf, you're right. I didn't have you in week 4. Vanessa and I will track that down and figure out how we made that mistake. Okay. So no worries. We got you covered.
Vanessa, what other questions have we not answered yet?
I think we've answered all of them. I just had another one that says that if they needed to pay for the excursions by the 30th as well.
All the excursions you need to register and pay by the 30th. Yes.
Yeah. And if there's some sort of extenuating circumstance about that, then let's take that on a 1-to-1 kind of basis. In general, though, yeah, registering for it would be paying for it. But again, if you're committed to it, but you just need to wait until the new year or whatever, that's fine. Let's just talk about it. Okay. All right. Man, we are so good.
Let's open it up, open mic. What other questions, or you can drop them in the chat box as well, but what other questions about your experience in Costa Rica?
Brenda's got a question about how's the weather. I think we kind of answered it, but in this time of year, January, February, March, it is dry season. It's not going to be overwhelmingly hot where we are because we're kind of up at elevation around 4,000 feet. And so in the mornings, it'll feel warmer than in the afternoons. Dawn and dusk will feel cooler, but we'll get some heat during the days, but it'll be more of a dry heat. It may rain here and there. When we go to the beach, when we go to La Fortuna, those are a little lower elevations. You'll feel the heat and the humidity in those places. Yeah.
It's the temporada seca, so the
Yeah.
dry season in February in Costa Rica.
But let's be
So-
honest, it's the tropics. It's
But it is
never
the
really
tropics,
dry.
it still rains. Yeah, it's still very humid.
So just a question about the transportation, both pickup and then drop off will be by the host family,
Your host-
in-
yeah, go ahead.
including if, for instance, I'm going to be staying a couple of extra days at the end of my second week. So I'll be going back to San Jose like on a Tuesday rather than, a Sunday.
Yeah. So Mary, typically, your host family, yes, gets you to the airport, gets you all settled in. Typically, by the time you're leaving, you'll just grab a taxi or an Uber to get back to the airport. That's generally how it works. Yeah. You could do the bus, but that's quite an adventure.
It's like three buses.
It's a few, you got to change the buses a couple
She
times.
just for those. She just gave us a thumbs up.
Awesome. I'll map out the route for you.
So if we have to stay longer because I'm working on flights still and
Yeah.
trying to get the decent price, if I have to stay, if my program's done on Friday, February 25th, and I have to stay until Tuesday to get a reasonable price, what happens then? Do I stay with my same host
Yeah,
family?
you can
Yeah.
stay with your same host family. There's you'll just pay the additional host family nights.
Yeah,
to stay with
it's
them.
$50 a night with your host family. So you just do
Directly to
nights.
them or with you, to you guys?
No, through us.
through
we'll
us,
arrange
yep.
it. Yep.
Yep. And so we'll, on your registration form and everything, you'll note that and then it'll be all squared away. Yep, not a problem.
I have a question. I'm directionally challenged. I'll own
Okay.
that. So how far is the classes from, say, an average host family? And how do we
Victoria,
get there?
You are gonna you're gonna improve your direction challenge in Costa Rica because there are no addresses in Costa Rica. So it's all based off
She's doing
north,
this.
south,
She's doing
west,
this.
and when we do on Sunday, when we do an orientation with you guys, we're going to walk up to the church together and show you some tips and signs. But host families, you'll when we do this walking tour and orientation, you'll see that it's one long road that goes north to south. So you need to know your north to south, and we'll help you figure that out. And then the language school is on the south part of that street, and most host families are north of that. So it's
The short
walking
answer
up
is
and down.
20 to 30-minute walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's pretty common. Just make sure you pack your tennis shoes and you'll see other people on the route. And so, yep, you're going to be okay, Victoria.
As long as it's a straight walk.
It might not be a
Yeah.
straight walk,
There
but
might
you're
be
still going to
some
be
signs,
okay.
But
The
we'll help.
address,
And you
address for
will
my
not be
host
the first
family's
person
house.
to lose your way in the first couple days.
Yep.
The
Yeah,
address for my
demographic.
host family's house was 175 meters from the pharmacy behind Yi's closet.
There we go.
That's a good address, John.
And if you were to write, Deborah, I see you. If you were to write a letter to them from the US, you would use those directions as their address on the letter.
It's quite impressive, actually, quite impressive. Okay, Deborah, you had a question.
Okay, two quick questions. Who is Gloria Ballard? You mentioned her, but we didn't meet her.
Gloria's
Gloria,
right below
Oh.
you on my screen.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
And what does she do? Who is
well,
she?
Gloria's a friend from Intercambio.
You
And
both are in
Yeah.
Intercambio.
We're both in Intercambio. I'm a freelance writer in Nashville, And I actually I've been in was in intercambio from the beginning when they started in 2020 and have just been in all along. Why do you ask? I have to know.
No, because they mentioned your name, but I didn't know who you were. That's all.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean,
I'm
okay.
I'm
Mucho gusto.
okay.
And then-
It's nice
and
to
then-
meet you.
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
And then my second question was, I put it in some of the things that I've sent you guys. Maybe you haven't seen it yet, but I'm coming in from California. I get there at about 11 p.m.
And you need a
So
hotel.
I'm coming in on Friday. So I need to, do you have any hotel recommendations?
Yes,
That's all.
I'm gonna pull one up right now for you.
That your email's in my inbox marked as unread because I.
Okay, fine.
read
Then
it, but I
don't worry
need to
about it.
respond.
Don't waste time now.
You're so
Don't waste
bad,
time
you
now.
marked it unread?
No, I read it, but then I marked unread because that's my system.
Don't
Tell
worry
all of
about it
us
now.
in case, no, tell all of us in case we need
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I'm
So
pulling it up
we're
right now.
pulling it up on a map. So while Rory's pulling that, we have a couple different, there's a couple hotels that are like chain hotels that offer an airport shuttle. So that's a good option for, especially if you're coming in late at night. I think it's the Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah,
right?
here's the Holiday Inn Express. I'm gonna drop it in
We're
there in
gonna
just a
drop it in the
second.
chat, so you can have that direct number.
That's the Holiday Inn Express, and then here's a Hampton Inn right next to it.
And those offer free airport shuttles to the airport and back.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, Shirley, I see that hand raised, and then Gloria.
Yes, my question is just for point of clarification. So if we're ending our session at the right time or not at the time we have programmed it onto our program with you, do we have to find an Uber to go back to the airport as well? Or is it those who are extending their stay?
You on the end part of your program, everyone is responsible for their own transportation back to the airport. We
Okay.
will help you. Rory and
Got
I will help you.
Yeah.
It's quite straightforward once you get down there and understand how it works. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Uber
Thank
easy.
you.
Oh, dad joke. Oh, dad joke. Okay, all right.
Gloria. You're on mute, amiga.
Right, all right. Okay, I always forget that. I know that last in the summer, because I had signed up for the summer but then changed it, but I know that you had the WhatsApp group. When are you going to be doing, are you going to be doing a WhatsApp group this time?
Yeah,
for-
thank you. So we will start that WhatsApp group like the week before the program start date, maybe 5 days before. And that's something that you guys should, if you don't have the WhatsApp app downloaded on your phone, you should do that. But that is how we keep our group communication going on program. So if there's any changes, last minute changes, like someone's running late to meet the bus, you can put it in the WhatsApp group and things like that. And we share pictures, and that's our main mode of communication to get details if there's any changes, everything like that.
That's right. Yep, exactly. Okay, other questions?
Do you have a recommendation on cash? How much cash to carry, or just use a card, or what?
That's
Good
a
question.
Great question. So a good recommendation for cash, everyone will have their own sort of, I feel all right about carrying this amount on me. I don't think you'd need any more than like, $50 worth of cash at any one time to have on you. The best way to get local currency is just out of the ATM with your debit card, not your credit card, with your debit card, and you'll get a good exchange rate. Part of your calculation might be checking with your bank and seeing, what kind of ATM international fees and that kind of stuff your bank's going to charge you. And if it's going to charge you a lot, then you might not want to make like equivalent $10 withdrawals from the ATM. You might want to make, $50 to $100 withdrawals from the ATM, but you don't need a ton of cash. You can use your credit card in most places for meals and that kind of thing. But it is a good idea to always have a little bit of cash on you. So,
Okay, quick trivia. What is the currency called in Costa Rica? You can put it in the chat. Who knows?
or just say it out loud.
Or just say it out loud.
Colones.
Colones,
That's
there we
right.
go.
Colones.
Colones to the dollar. You can start practicing this math.
It's been changing, of course.
Más o menos, ¿cuántos colones?
Más o menos. Más o menos, how quickly can you Google it? That's the question. How quickly can you Google it? It's about 600 colones. Yeah, John, I think in decimals too. Yeah.
550 is my guess.
Yeah, there you go, Rick. It's right around today it's at 601, but usually it hovers like between 575 and 612, 615.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the short answer is you don't need a ton of cash on you, but it's good to have some. You can use your card for most expenses. Yeah. What other questions do we have out there?
Will the excursions that we pay for cover all cost? Like the
They will
hotel?
cover your transportation, most of your activities. There's usually like an optional activity. Like, so for example, when we go to La Fortuna, not everyone wants to zip line and get on that thing and go through the forest canopy. And so that's something that would be an additional to that. But you know, your breakfasts are included. You'll buy your lunches and dinners apart from that. Yeah. So
John said, because he was on program last year, he used less than $50 in cash for the week. So that's a good idea to have $50 a week, 50 to 75 a week for extra meals. Remember your host families, you'll eat lunch and dinner with your host families. So when we're studying Spanish at the language school and stuff, you are responsible for your lunches.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris had a question. I think I saw, there
Yeah.
we go.
So when you were talking about the excursions, you only mentioned the first 2 weeks. So if we're there longer, how do we pay ahead for those?
Yeah. So what we'll do, since the group gets smaller and things, we will work with you and say, hey, what do you guys want to do this week 3? And we'll put it together. And, you know, being there early on, that gives us plenty of time to help plan that 3rd week. It's
Oh,
not-
okay. So we don't have to pay
Yep.
ahead for week
Yep.
3 and 4 or whatever.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Other questions? Okay, guys, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to respond to them. We're going to sort of cull the chat for these questions, make sure we've got them all answered as well on that Welcome Hub page.
I'm going to stay on for a couple more minutes if people want to. You can go. I'll dismiss you.
Oh, gracias, jefa.
And I'm dismissing you. If you don't have any more questions or you'd rather have it be a one-on-one thing, muchísimas gracias. We know how busy your evenings are. We're right there with you guys.
Yep.
In the busyness of life. So thanks for taking an hour out of your night tonight. And we are excited to see you. Next meeting is January 12th.
Thursday, January 12th. So between now and then, have a Merry Christmas.
Get your
and
registration form
Get your
in.
registration form in, your Spanish placement test done, and we will chat in the new year.